Mahomes versus Allen around 10 is this Sunday. We're getting ready for it today on the Locked On Podcast Network.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into this crossover Thursday episode of Locked On Bills and Locked On Chiefs. We're both proud members of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And of course, we want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Crossover Thursday is presented by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. That's Ryan Tracy and Chris Clark, the hosts of Locked On Chiefs, and we're here to get you ready for Week 9, where the Bills host the Chiefs for their annual regular season showdown. Welcome in, guys. I'm excited to break this matchup down with you, and these teams are battling. The Bills and Chiefs are not leading their respective divisions for this matchup, and so this one is important for all kinds of reasons. Welcome in, gentlemen.
Yeah, this is a little bit different than in normal. I was just thinking that as you were saying this, they play every single year. Next year, if it continues the way it is right now, that might not be the case.
Well, the thing about that playing every year is they actually play twice every year, it feels like. And The Bills have had their success in the first one, but it's the second one that counts, and that's the one that the Chiefs have had the death grip on. And so we'll see how this time around affects that one later on that always feels inevitable. And so let's get into it, guys. The biggest story for each team is how we'll lead this conversation. When you think about this Chiefs team entering in, they're rolling. They've had a heck of an offensive performance lately, 5 straight games of at least 28 points, 24 first downs, and 350 yards. They're number 1 in the league in time of possession per drive, plays per drive, the lowest turnover rate in the league, second in points per drive. They're 6th in third down rate. They're 5th in red zone touchdown percentage. They're rolling. Oh, by the way, they've allowed a total of 24 points defensively in the last 3 games combined. Feels like the Chiefs are back to being the Juggernaut Chiefs.
Yeah, I would say that they're back to being what you expect them to be going into the season, but getting all the players back really helped that. And the one thing that you didn't mention that I think is different than it has been kind of in the past, Andy Reid has been much more aggressive this year, and I think that has been a huge key to how they've been playing over the past several weeks.
Yeah, was it going for it on some 4th downs? When you say Andy Reid's been aggressive, what's new in that department?
Continuing to call plays that are over the top, continuing to call plays that push boundaries, maybe listening to some modern analytics and actually going for it on 4th. We were pretty flabbergasted because it's anti-Reid mentality that's actually working for this team right now. Not that it's completely situated. As you say, those are a lot of good stats, but this is a team that is in 7th place in the AFC. And right now, barely holding on to a playoff spot if we had to start tomorrow. So let's be real, that they are at this point playing well. But this game changes things. It always does against the Bills. I don't think this is going to be anything different. I think this is going to be a battle.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting part of the season for Kansas City. As we've mentioned, they are rolling, but it's at Buffalo, at Denver, and then Indy. This feels like a critical part of Kansas City's schedule. And so while it feels like you guys want to caution a little bit, you're certainly playing great football at the most important time of the schedule, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's going to be a huge test. You talk about the Bills. I mean, it's a test every single year. The Broncos are playing fantastic football in the AFC West, although they just lost one of their best players, and you guys just lost one of yours as well. And, then you have the Indianapolis Colts, who nobody figures going to be in the position they're in right now. It's a crucial period, and you're really going to know what this Chiefs team is because of the 3 teams that they're getting ready to play in the next couple of weeks.
Let me ask you this. You guys have had some praise for Andy Reid and being aggressive and, maybe some play calling differences. And one thing that has been a narrative from the Chiefs side of things as they've had some lulls offensively during the regular season the last couple of years has been they're saving it for the playoffs. I've heard that so many times. Is that not the case anymore? How do you foil that narrative against what's going on right now?
Oh, it's still the case.
All right.
Otherwise, we'd be seeing Brashard Smith constantly. It's just that he's letting a few things out. He's showing you a couple of different looks. He's putting things on film. Honestly, he designs every Raiders game to put something on film for your Bills to actually have to go study. Like, that is part of the plan. So he's holding back, as I expect he always will, but he is leaking out a little bit more this season than maybe most.
All right, I'm excited to see how that plays out. From the Bills side of things, guys, when I consider the biggest storyline, Chris kind of hinted at it, of course, Ed Oliver, torn biceps, out indefinitely. If he returns, it would be late if the Bills make a deep postseason run. And so obviously he's not available for this game, and he's had some injuries this year, but for the 2.5 games he was available, he was playing at a really, really high level, and there's no denying that's a big hit for Buffalo's defense. But really the talking points right now, the big story out of Buffalo has been this passing offense that's really lacked some rhythm over the last couple of games against Atlanta before the bye. They got after Josh Allen with the blitz, and he was rattled in some ways that I haven't really seen in a while. And then coming out of the bye, you're hoping to get back on schedule. And the Bills, they beat the Panthers 40-9, but it was because that historic day rushing the football. James Cook, 216 rushing yards on 19 carries. And then the defense against a backup quarterback and Andy Dalton had 7 sacks and 3 takeaways. Meanwhile, the passing offense was efficient, but it just didn't look very settled. And, Josh Allen in his his post-game press conference, in the first 3 minutes, he was asked about, what's up with the passing game. And he talked about the need to trust things more. And so we haven't seen them quite have the success pushing the ball down the field like maybe they have in the past. And while there's still some efficiency to this passing offense, it just hasn't looked super settled. And so you wonder, are the Chiefs the right opponent at the right time for that to kind of come together, or is it the exact opposite of that? And Spagnuolo and company will have plenty of tricks up their sleeves to maybe put this passing game in an even deeper rut.
I would say that right now, the way it's sitting, the Chiefs passing game is playing very well. I think they struggled a little bit in the Commanders game to start the game, but you saw what happened in the second half, and they just completely shut the Commanders down. I was just looking at stats. Josh Allen has 2 straight games under 200 passing yards. I can guarantee you that the Bills generally aren't going to be winning many games if that's going to be the case. Obviously, Cook having a huge game plays into that. I have a hard time believing that Josh Allen is going to be under 200 yards against the Chiefs just because of the type of game I expect this to be. But the one thing that I also think will play into this is Kansas City just signed Mike Pennell literally today to play probably in this game, I would imagine, considering he knows the defense, against helping with James Cook. So I do think that they're going to be looking to stop the run a little bit, and I do think that's going to also play into this game as well.
And well, believe it or not, the Bills 3-1 this year when Josh Allen throws for under 200 passing yards. It's been it speaks to this offense being not just Josh Allen. It's a James Cook offense as well. Number 2 in the NFL in rushing. He's really emerged as a premier back, and the Bills run the ball quite well. And so I guess that's been a nice pick-me-up, but I think this is going to be a big-time quarterback duel where passing yards are probably going to matter a ton, and feels like Mahomes has got the hot hand right now, and Allen and the Bills passing offense has had its share of struggles. And so it'll be exciting to see how that plays out. We'll talk more about it here next. We're going to get into the matchups that are going to change this game. We'll do that here in just a moment, folks. Be sure to stick with us. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both. There's no better time to jump in on the action. And if you haven't tried it yet, PrizePicks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on 2-player stats, and if you're right, you're going to get money. It takes just 60 seconds to make a lineup, and you can play anywhere that PrizePicks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. I've been using PrizePicks during both football Sundays and NBA tip-offs, and it just keeps every game more exciting. And I love this. They have the injury reboot feature. So if one of your players leaves early with an injury, that'll save your lineup from a loss. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Let's be honest, most of us can't even name all our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track and that can mean leaving money on the table. And that's why I started using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. It's helped me organize my accounts, track my spending, and get a better handle on my investments without having to touch a spreadsheet. I love that I can review everything with my partner, see our shared goals, and make better financial decisions together. Monarch's visual dashboards and smart tools make it so much easier to understand where my money's going and how to make it work harder for me. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Joe Marino from Locked On Bills, joined by Ryan Tracy and Chris Clark, the hosts of Locked On Chiefs. We're here to get you ready for Week 9, Bills, Chiefs in Orchard Park this time. And we're now going to discuss the matchups that are going to dictate this football game. And guys, when I think about matchups in this game, it's not necessarily players. It's not necessarily coaches per se. It's a matchup of styles. You have this Chiefs team. I think they want to invite you to a track meet. You know, they're going to throw the ball, right? The pass rate over expectation this year for the Chiefs is skyrocketing high. Meanwhile, you have a Bills team that wants to run a more clock control offense, run the football. They're going to be efficient in the passing game. And that contrast of styles is pretty interesting. And, you know, obviously if the Bills don't execute that and finish drives with touchdowns, that's going to be tough. As you know, Kansas City is going to air it out and invite Buffalo to a track meet. And so the matchup of styles in this game really has me intrigued.
Yeah, I can't say I blame you. I think it's one of the biggest matchups in this game is going to be really what we've seen the past couple of weeks for Kansas City. It's Chiefs wide receivers versus the Bills secondary. It's not a specific player because there's multiple different players that for the Chiefs that can really hurt you right now. And so to me, it's a question, you know, how do the Bills attack this passing game for the Chiefs? Because the wide receivers have been getting open, and now you have three weapons that you feel like you can figure the ball could be going to any single play in Rice, Worthy, and Travis Kelce. And then you still have a guy in Hollywood Brown. You still have, you know, Tyquan Thornton. You still have other weapons as well. So this passing game versus this Bills defense, which has struggled at times this year, is going to be a huge matchup for me.
Yeah. Is it everybody eats? I feel like I've heard that before.
Yep.
Where did that come from? Come on, guys. What's going on with that? Are we going to act like the Bills didn't start that last year and now the Chiefs are just going to do it this year and make it like it was their idea? What's going on with that?
Rasheed Rice is going to claim it just because he's been out of the action for a while. It certainly is catching on like fire, but so is he, to be honest. Yeah. His efficiency coming back in has really lifted this team and really made them what they are. And to your point, the styles are very different, but one thing is different for the Chiefs as well, is not only are their proclivity to throw, but they are extending their own drives. They are running 15, 16, 18 play drives in order to maintain in their way, in their West Coast passing offense way, the same concept of running the ball for the Bills and trying to maintain time of possession. That is actually maybe the best combination that no one's talking about, is because you have that yin and yang of being able to run the plays you want to run, be in your comfort zone, spread the ball around to 8 and 10 receivers at times, but maintain that drive longevity. And that's really, I think, the key. The Bills have proven in the past, though, that they can disrupt, especially against this team. And there are possibilities there. I think whoever can actually maintain those drives and get to that 10-plus area is really what's going to control the game and the clock.
Yeah, Kansas City number one so far this year in time of possession and plays per drive. So certainly aligning with what you're saying there, Ryan. Another matchup for me in this game that I think is really important is Josh Allen against the blitz. And I talked about the Falcons game. They blitzed him into oblivion, to be honest with you, and affected him in some interesting ways. Now, the big picture still tells you that Josh Allen's really good against the blitz so far this year. He's 7th in EPA per dropback against the blitz, 106.5 passer rating against the blitz. But the Atlanta game is heavy on my mind right now, and we certainly know that Steve Spagnuolo has creative blitz packages. He's done well at times to really affect Buffalo's protection schemes. So we all remember the 4th and 5 last year that was decisive in the AFC Championship game. And so how do the Bills handle the blitz this time around? And they're going to need some answers that they didn't have a couple weeks ago when they played Atlanta.
You kind of touched on this a little bit earlier with when you talk about James Cook, and I think that's a huge matchup in this game for me is James Cook versus this Chiefs defensive line. And the Chiefs have been good stopping running backs so far this year. They've held several big running backs. Derrick Henry didn't really get going in that game against Baltimore. The Commanders' running game never really got going. The Raiders never really got going with Ashton Genty. This is a good run. It's been a good run defense to an extent. But James Cook is a different type of back. And to me, that is going to be a big question as to how they're going to handle it, especially considering you're dealing with injuries at the defensive tackle position. You lost, Omar Norman-Lott earlier, and you bring back Mike Pennell, kind of like we talked about earlier. And I think that that's going to help to an extent. But defensive tackle is still a weakness for this Chiefs team. And if the Bills are going to continually run the ball and they stick to it and they're able to stick to it, then I think that is going to play into their favor. So to me, that's a huge matchup with James Cook.
Yeah, I'm interested to see that myself. James Cook, I think, will be heavily involved. And the Bills have a very unique way of how they run the football where they're going to put 2-3 tight ends on the field. They're going to have their fullback involved and really attack you with a mix of zone and gap. And, it's been pretty successful this year. The Bills, I think, are second in the league in EPA per rush. I know that the Chiefs are very high up there as well. I think they're top 5 as well. So a couple of very efficient rushing offenses. And I think that's going to be, we're talking about Mahomes and Allen. I think running the football is going to matter in this one quite a bit. Another key for me for the Bills in terms of matchups is I think the Bills have got to find ways to attack Nick Bolton and Jamari Connor in coverage. These guys have been giving up a lot of production, a lot of yards after catch when they're targeted. Connor's given up a completion percentage of 93% this year. Bolton, 84%. I think one has a passer rating against their coverage of north of 130. The other one around 110. And I guess the good news for Kansas City is everyone else seems to be really, really good in coverage. But if you can isolate some opportunities with guys like Khalil Shakir and Dalton Kincaid, the Bills' best 2 pass catchers, against those guys who have been giving up plenty of production in the passing game, I think that's going to be a really critical area for Buffalo to find that passing production that's kind of been missing in recent weeks.
I think you nailed it, and I think it plays into their game plan of having 2 and 3 tight end sets. It's the tight ends that always seem to break this game open for the Bills and be able to hit those spots against the Chiefs defense when they're not expecting it or they are sending exotic pressure. And unfortunately, I don't see that changing, to be honest, when you can target those 2 players. So the key for Spags is to change his blitz pattern so that he's not leaving them on islands. And unfortunately, that's been the formula so far to get there. But just like Andy Reid, I do think he keeps a couple things back for this particular ballgame against this particular quarterback. So let's see what matchups they do give up and what they try to switch out.
Yeah, one other thing for me in terms of matchups is the Chiefs' offensive tackles. Guessing it's probably Moore and Taylor against the Bills' edge rushers. They've stocked this cupboard pretty nice. They've added Joey Bosa, who I know the Chiefs fans are well familiar with from his time in the AFC West. He's healthy, which is good. We never know when that's not going to be the case, but he's healthy for now. Michael Hoyt's just returned from suspension, and he had a sack and a half against Carolina. He really flashed well in the preseason. I think he's going to be a big kind of chess piece that they can move around their front and unleash it and attack the pocket. And then, of course, Rousseau and Epinesa, who have been mainstays. So they're deeper than they've ever been on the edge, and it could be some ripe opportunities if they're going to get Mahomes out of rhythm to attack those offensive tackles.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge key in this game is can they get after Patrick Mahomes? Can they get him out of his normal looking downfield and bring his eyes down? If they can get it to where he brings his eyes down, it completely changes how he plays the game. But so far to the point this season, they have played very well. They've been able to keep Mahomes mostly clean. I'm not going to say he's been clean every single game, but mostly clean. And I do think that could play a huge factor in this game is if Moore gets beat like he did early on in the Commanders. You saw what it did to the Chiefs offense. They weren't able to be efficient as they normally have been, and they struggled in the first half. When they got it figured out and they got it cleaned up in the second half, offense kind of just took off, and I think that's a big key to it.
All right, guys. We've talked about the storylines. We've talked about the matchups. Coming up next, the keys to victory for both sides of the equation. Folks, be sure to stick with us. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details, and Mazda brings this same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel the craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from the smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, folks, it's a big one. Sunday in Orchard Park, Bills, Chiefs, Allen, Mahomes, and we're here getting you ready for it. We're focusing now on what each team needs to do to win this football game. And, guys, I've got 3 keys for the Bills. If they're going to pull off the upset, the Bills are home underdogs against Patrick Mahomes and company in this one. Here's my 3 keys. Number 1, and I think this has been really the difference in every single one of these competitive games between Kansas City and Buffalo. You got to win the situational moments, right? I think that's really what it comes down to. We talk third downs, red zone. That's obviously important. You got to convert on third down. You get off the field on third down, score in the red zone, limit them to field goals in the red zone. But to me, it's about having the right call at the right time and who's going to make that critical play in the key moment. That you can go to any one of these 9 previous matchups, most of them, and say, yeah, that was like the moment, the thing that had to happen. And one side of the equation, the Chiefs always in the playoffs, usually the Bills in the regular season, who's going to be able to have that right call, that right play at the right time. So winning situational football, I think, is paramount for both sides, especially for Buffalo. Number 2 is you have got to figure out something that's really tough to do, and that's to get Patrick Mahomes out of rhythm. This guy has 14 touchdown passes in his last 5 games. We talked about the points that they're putting up. I think it's the best the Chiefs offense has looked in probably 3 or 4 years. And, like you said, there's the complement of weapons there with Rashee Rice, who's obviously a critical part of their zone busting. And then it's all that speed with Worthy and Brown and Thornton behind it. And Kelsey still exists. Gray's a good player. And so there's a full complement of weapons, and Mahomes is dealing, right? He is simply dealing. He looks like, that he's always looked amazing, but like he's like at the high end of what you typically see from Patrick Mahomes. And look, he's awesome, but when he's pressured, right, he's a little worse. Like every quarterback, his completion percentage when kept clean, 74%. When he's pressured, 47%. The Bills have got to find ways to get pressure on Patrick Mahomes if they're going to have any chance to get him out of rhythm. And then number 3, I think this is really big for Buffalo. It's got to be about their play action passing offense. The Chiefs have struggled against play action, actually struggled more than any team. They're dead last in the league in EPA per play against play action passes. They're allowing 11.2 yards per play against play action passes. That's worse in the league. And number 2 is the Bears at 9.8 yards. They're allowing 5.3 average yards of separation at target against play action. And the next closest is Dallas at 4.7. This is a problem for the Chiefs defense. The Bills have got to find ways to take advantage of the play action passing game. Josh Allen's number 3 in the league in EPA per dropback with play action. To me, this is the biggest advantage. I've studied it all, guys. The biggest advantage that I can find for Buffalo and where they're good and where Kansas City's not is play action passing. And for Kansas City, it's play action defense. And the Bills have got to be able to exploit that on Sunday afternoon.
You talked about situational football, and I'm just going to say here, this is a game where it's going to come down to probably the last possession, just because generally speaking, all these Chiefs-Bills games have been last possession type games. So it's going to be an issue of, can you protect the ball? Can you make sure you don't turn it over? Kansas City has been fantastic at not turning the ball over this year. They only have 4 turnovers in total. They haven't fumbled the ball yet so far, and eventually that's going to be something that's going to flip over. They've fumbled the ball 8 times, but they've never turned it over with a fumble. They have thrown 4 picks. You have to take all of your possessions in this game, and you have to not give the Bills a short field for the Bills offense, and vice versa. Kansas City cannot, if the Bills are going to win this game, Kansas City cannot get short fields because Patrick Mahomes will take advantage of that. So to me, the turnover possession battle is going to be so huge because this game, I think, is going to be a shootout, and every possession is going to matter, and I still think it's going to come down to the end.
There's a couple of points that I would say are must-haves, and Joe, they tie in one in particular to what you said about play action passing. It is the thorn in the side of this defense that is actually playing pretty well outside of that category. Yeah. And I will say this, the other thing that they have a tendency to do is overcompensate. And knowing that we're calling out, we know the coaching staff's calling it out. So then what do? That becomes the next evolution of running play action. And if Josh pulls it down and uses his legs, I think both these guys are going to run a little bit. Yeah. I think they generally like to against each other or each other's defenses. And so then the question becomes, are you overcompensating enough that you let Josh just run all over you? That's what they have to guard against. It's about discipline, no matter what the assignment is, and not getting too out of step to protect one side or the other. The other thing that I will say is crucial for what they do down the stretch is understanding that what you're seeing is not what you're going to get. Patrick Mahomes has had two problems this year: throwing bobbled passes to Travis Kelce and not seeing dropping defenders, especially when they're mugging up in front of him and he thinks he knows where they're going. He has made a couple of assumptions. And I think that this team, whether it's the outstretched arm of Epinesa or some of the other crazy plays that have happened between these two teams, that's the thing that they have to guard against, and leading to that turnover battle that they have to win to get out with a W.
You mentioned Kansas City's turned it over 4 times this year. I'm pretty sure 2 of those were like in the hands of a receiver, and then pretty much
Travis Kelce.
Right. So both they really, to me, they turned it over twice, guys. Come on now. I mean, those are some goofy interceptions, right?
No, absolutely. But I mean, that, you look at the interception against Philadelphia, it completely changed the game. They're in the end zone if Kelce catches that ball and the Eagles take that interception, go down, score a touchdown. I mean, it completely flipped how that game was going to go. So huge plays. They have to be focused. And I will say this: there's no doubt in my mind that every single Chiefs player is going to be ready for this game because they know what it means, and they know that, generally speaking, in the regular season, they're losing to Buffalo. That's just generally how it's been.
Is it me, or is Mahomes actually running more this year? I'm looking at the stats. He has 280 rushing yards. His career high is 389 for a season. He's got 280 through 8 games. It feels like he's taken off a little bit more.
It's just not the longer runs. Like, you know how things break down, and he gets backs turned to him and he goes for 30-plus yards. He's getting those 10, 12 yards, turn over the sticks and making things
those
work.
Annoying ones, right, for the opponent. Right. Moving the sticks, right? All right, gentlemen. This is a big one. I got a feeling this is going to be our first of 2 crossover episodes. The question's going to be, who's hosting, me or you, next time we do this in January. And it's been such an interesting journey of the success that Kansas City's had in the postseason versus the success the Bills have had in the regular season. And it's interesting to me that, kind of listening to you guys talk about this game, I've felt some magnitude, importance, urgency on Kansas City's side. And I just assumed, well, it doesn't matter. They lose to Buffalo. They beat them in the postseason. But it feels like maybe it's because the division is tighter right now. Kansas City's in 3rd. Obviously, there's a lot of football that's left to play out. But I guess I feel more urgency out of the Kansas City side than I have in a while when we've talked about this particular game.
To me, it's just because they got 3 losses early. You lose a divisional game early, and then you lose 2 more. That's, the Jacksonville game you should have won, Philadelphia game, whatever. But, Jacksonville and the Chargers probably should have won both those games. And if you are sitting in here in this situation and you're going into this game with only 1 loss, it's a little bit of a different ball game. But at this point, you have to play who's in front of you, and you can't afford to lose games. I mean, Kansas City went 15-1 with Mahomes as a starter last year, and they've already got 3 times as many losses as they had all of last year with Mahomes as a starter. They just have to focus more, and they have to play every good game. I mean, you talked about the schedule earlier, Joe, as well. They play the Bills, they play the Broncos, and they play the Colts. Those are 3 tough games right in a row.
Yeah, it's that time of year. It's November. That's when it starts to really matter, boys. So we will get it started in a big way here on Sunday afternoon. Guys, thanks for a great conversation. And everybody, thanks for listening. Tons more coverage coming your way pre and post game on Locked On Chiefs and Locked On Bills. So make sure you are dialed into both sides of the conversation. For Chris Clark and Ryan Tracy, I'm Joe Marino. Thanks for being here, folks. We appreciate it. We'll catch up with you again real soon.